All right, everybody. Hey, a conversation I've been looking forward to having for a long time with a man whose bass lines you've absolutely heard, whether you know it or not. I'm sure you do. But I would say it's safe to say on hundreds of tracks. He's a Brooklyn kid. We first met on the CBS morning show with Bobby Caldwell. I started playing with the Bobby Caldwell band. He's a Brooklyn kid who's fourth grade music teacher. Discovered he had a perfect pitch, and by age 11, he was a working professional musician, playing church dances and block parties in the neighborhood. He went on to the legendary High School of Music and Art, the Fame School, all the movies are about, and then to Juilliard. And then he took that classical training and put it on the road with Spyro Gyra, with Michael Franks, 29 years with the great Bobby Caldwell, which is where we met, where I played in the band for 7 or 8 years off and on. He's been a musical director for Randy Crawford, for Diane, Schuur. He's recorded with George Benson, Jarreau, Bob James, Boz Scaggs, and Christopher Cross, Arturo Sandoval. The list literally does not end. And here's the part I love the most. When the pandemic shut down every stage in the world, he didn't sit still. He went into the studio, he reinvented himself like so many of us as a writer and producer, and he has since penned Billboard #1 hits for Paul Brown, Bob James, Kirk Whalum, Richard Elliot. Right now, in 2026, he's having a solo renaissance of his own. He has some new singles out he's going to tell us about, and he's grooving on smooth jazz radio as we speak. As a guy who spent his life on the same stages in the same world with a lot of the same people, I cannot wait for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, the heartbeat behind more hits than he'll ever admit to. My next guest on Studio Live is Roberto Vally. Roberto, welcome to the show. How are you doing, my friend? Can you hear me all right?
Man, I hear you fine. I'm doing fine. Happy to be sharing a little bit of time with you and some stories, and I might have a juicy one or two.
Yeah. Hey, I want to start right where you are today, because I think that's the most exciting chapter of the whole story. Because there's a lot underneath the hood, and as we know each other, but you've spent 4 decades making everybody else sound good and incredible, and now you have some of your own singles out on the radio, mixed by Paul Brown, horns by Andrew New, and you've described it as a song that makes you feel one with the universe. Are we talking about Hang Loose? Is that your newest one? Or you have a newer one out now?
No, Hang Loose is the newest one. That was released back in February, and they're still playing it lots, and happy to be having it still hanging on, getting spins, and it was #1 actually on the Spanish Billboard chart, which was pretty cool. And and since the production of that, I've been busy writing with other people for other artists, in our genre. And I will shamelessly tell you, I would love to pen one with you one of these days.
Oh, heck yeah. I'm sure we'll do that. So most guys with your resume or maybe, might think about slowing down at this point, but you're speeding up. So what's lit the fire, do you think, for you?
Mm. Well, I picked up that habit of liking to eat. So I'm kidding. That was in a
Well, I know
football.
this
I love
about you from hanging with
so they
you. Like when we went to Japan, and I've learned a lot about this since I married an Italian woman, because that's how we make our days. We talk about what we're going to eat later. And so when I met you and we first went to
Yes.
Japan with Bobby Caldwell, you were always talking about, oh, this place we're going to get the noodles, and this place we're going to get the, what kind of stuff we're going to eat. And
Sure.
why don't you tell us about that a little bit? Your
Well,
Italian
it's
stallion.
all about it's all about the food. But if I want to just go back to your question real quick on how I fell into this versus being a sideman. Making my 3 albums really made me start thinking about how I could invent myself as an artist. So I wrote 3 albums worth of stuff. I didn't really care at all about radio, But in the meantime, on a side note, I was having a lot of success on the radio. I just wanted to sell something off the bandstand, with you and whoever, we go to Japan with Bobby or whoever lets us, sell our product. But when the pandemic hit, I thought, maybe I need to think about using some of those tools that I had writing for other people, thinking more really in the genre, and then it kind of just cultivated from there. So anyway, to answer that question, but we can now let's talk about food all day long.
Yeah, well, you're Italian. Tell us a little bit about your. Sorry to ask people about their heritage, your Italianness. About food.
Yes.
Tell me about, man, because food. I've hung out with you so many times, and it's always a good eat. So what is with
Yes,
that?
man. That's yeah, I guess that comes from Brooklyn. That comes from having a Sicilian mother. My father was an immigrant from southern Italy. He came over in the 50s, and he settled in Little Italy, and he took my grandmother and his younger brother and sisters with him, and he was a man of the house, and he met my mom, and they opened up a little jewelry shop, and they did well enough to raise me and give me a good home, me and my sister. And food was always celebrated throughout the week, and anything with family, it would be all about the food,
Was
and
family
and
a
the
focus? Was family a
17
yeah?
yeah, 17 course, meals. So yeah, it started, I guess it started, real young. It was always, I'm sure, a lot of families, a lot of cultures revolve around the dinner table. So it was very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so your recent singles read sort of like a travel journal. Sedona Sunrise. I'm just looking at the titles. Last Flight Home, Tranquila.
Yeah.
One writer called your solo work a personal cinematic travelogue. When you sit down to write, are you writing places, things, or what? What? How do you come up with these titles and for your music?
Yeah. Oh, man, I don't know. I would want to ask you the same thing to get pointers, but I never really think of a title before I do the song. Usually after I put a bass line down and maybe a little drum part, and I'm listening to it, I'm going, okay, there's a song here somewhere. I just have to unearth it and make sure I don't chip any of the things when I dig it out of the mud, but it's there. Um, so when I finish it, then I feel like then I can give it a proper title. And I guess more than once, it's been about a place that I've been, like Woody's Gap, or Sedona Sunrise, or just these places that you go and visit on the road. I mean, shoot, I could name 1,000 songs, different places that I've been to that inspired me. But you just kind of listen to the music, and you you wonder, what would best suit. How do you do it, man?
How do I do? Um,
Yeah.
I like this. This sounds a little nutty. Maybe everybody's different, but I like to intention set. I like to think about where I want to go, and I guess maybe sort
Uh-huh.
of a similar thing. But I like my last single, Horizon Line. I'm always flying, and I'm always thinking about where my life, about intentions setting, and where you're going next. So I tend
Hmm.
to try to work in. There's power in words. So try to work in titles that have an intention about them. But hey, I want to talk. I want to stay with that Italian bit for just a minute because um,
Okay, we can
what's
do that.
what? How do you think being Italian, coming from a family oriented around food? I mean, Italian arguably has the best, food, the best design, the best clothing, the best cars, the best architecture. I mean, some people would say that. Yeah, and
I guess some people would, yeah.
I married
Yeah,
one, so I think the best
yeah.
ladies, Anyway, um, so how has that affected your music? Do you think? I mean, you could
Mm.
just go anywhere with that, like the way you write, the way
Yeah.
with the way you,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, first off, when you hear my early albums, after I wrote for Kirk and Rick Braun and all those guys, and then I decided to make an album, and I'm infatuated with the accordion. And although we didn't have an accordion in the house, my dad certainly had enough records from Italy, or he'd listen to some things that had an accordion thing, and it just seemed very close to me, that sound. And and the way you breathe air, you move the air box for the accordion. It's really close. That's like the melodica. It emulates the human voice like a talk box. So I like things like that. I liked groups like the Guitar Project, where I heard a fusion of like tango in funk, or in dance, or in whatever I'm talking about. I just loved mixing things up. I don't think it was much more my heritage. Okay, I'm Italian. I like the accordion, but I think what shaped my music more than my Italianness was growing up in New York City and having that town and that opportunity in all across the dial. Where I went to school, the people that I met. You think about people that come out of New York, you know, it's yeah, it's pretty staggering out of Brooklyn even. But you had Harlem and Spanish Harlems. You had salsa and funk and Apollo, this and the Bottom Line, that, and Seventh Avenue South and Sweet Basil and all these clubs. And yeah, it was nice. I felt proud of being Italian American, son of an immigrant who came here with a debt and allowed me the opportunity that he never had. I mean, he was a genius. I can only say that because he drew a picture of my mother with a number 2 pencil, and it looks like a photograph. And he just did it, as a doodle. Just, I think I'll paint my wife, and he just did that, and like, what? He did it from like a little picture like this, and he made it into a giant thing, and it was just with a pencil, just shading it in, and all that. So yeah, he just came from a different a different culture, and he had to work in Italy and put all the money on the table. He saw an opportunity to come to America, and as much as we embraced our Italianism with food, and yeah, and they would talk with my grandmother. She didn't speak English, so they had to speak Italian, but they were pretty strict about speaking English, and they could speak Italian amongst themselves. But then I kind of figured it out after a while. But anyway, he gave me an opportunity, and I feel, so blessed to have had that upbringing. And some of his opera records definitely had an impact when I was still in like single digits. Those were my first albums. I put on like La Boheme and just listened to it. It just sounded so pretty.
Yeah, well, people I know from hanging with you, it's just like it should be a TV show. Everybody loves Roberto Valley. I mean, people wherever we go, and I've been. I mean,
Yeah, you
I haven't
think?
been everywhere with you, but I've been a lot of places with you, and and we've played together,
Well,
and
they
I
should
can.
talk to some of my exes. No, I'm kidding. No, well, I'm no, I'm
Yeah,
very close with my kids' moms, and I have a tight knit family, even for being the road warrior that I am. Yeah.
but I see that in you. If I may be so bold, like just in your relationships, the way you hang, and the way people love you, love to have you part of their team, like Paul Brown. I mean, you're on countless projects with Paul Brown, either behind the scenes or in front of the scenes. Can you talk? And
I
yeah,
can tell you one of the reasons why he always calls me. Okay,
pasta.
because Well, well, so kind of, yeah,
I
yeah,
just had
yeah.
some
Yeah,
pasta, by the way. It was delicious.
yeah. No, it's become a ritual after, hundreds of sessions at his house. Like,
Uh-huh.
you're going to bring the sugo, you're going to bring the ragu. So I usually dig a leftover thing, and I'll bring it over, and we'll eat.
Okay.
We'll eat, we'll play, or we'll play and then we'll eat, and maybe he'll offer me a cigar, and yeah, it's nice. It's coming like a little kind of like a standing joke. You gonna bring the sugo, or am I gonna? Do I have to get some or whatever? So
Can you talk about some of the
it's good.
projects? I mean, because you have, I mean, is it safe to say, I mean, dozens of songs with Paul that you're either collaborate, you've written, you've produced, and I want to hear like
Yeah,
more about, because I've been curious too, because I see you part of projects, and then I also see that lately you've been a producer. So
yeah,
how do you go
yeah,
back and forth, or has that developed recently, or have you always been a producer but just let out of the bag? You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, the necessity, brother. When
Breeds
the
invention.
pandemic came, when the pandemic came, I found myself in quite a quagmire. All these gigs just up and left. It just like was a domino thing, and all of a sudden in 10 days, I got the phone rang. The phone only rang, besides the tax collector, whatever. The phone rang to just say, "Oh yeah, that the thing with David, Bobby's tour cancel." No, no, they called it. They said postpone. So
Right.
I I was thinking what I can do, and I remember an artist that he's one of your contemporaries, Justin Young, and he I did a CD release party for him, and he. Uh, Found out that I had written like one of his favorite songs in the world, for smooth jazz. And it was a little ditty that I wrote and gave to Paul Brown. Paul gave it to Kirk Whalum, and that became Now Till Forever. And that's probably one of the most beautiful melodies anybody ever put on anything that I had any responsibility of the groove that I kind of came up with. So when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, Paul gave it to the right cat. Yeah.
And Justin is
Um,
such a talented and charismatic and positive um,
yeah.
saxophonist
So
in
yeah,
Vegas. In
yeah. So
fact, he
he
was kind
he
enough to, like, I forgot my microphone. I just, it doesn't happen very often, but every now and then I pull an amateur act and I leave something at home and I left my
yeah,
microphone, and I called him, and he was nice enough to offer to let me borrow one of his
yeah.
microphones. But anyway,
Well,
great guy.
he when he found out, I guess after he found out that I wrote that song, he came up to me and he just had a twinkle in his eye. He's like, dude, you don't understand. Like my that's like me and my dad's favorite smooth jazz song. And I'm thinking like he's just being too kind or whatever. But he said, would you ever think about writing me a song like
Like, yeah.
Tadioshi? I miss you, brother. I miss you, Tadioshi. I hope to see you soon. Okay, well, the producing thing, I think even though I was a sideman for decades before I even probably wrote, I joined Spyro Gyra in '87, but I was playing years before that. But I started writing, dabbling with that kid Jim Oppenheim, who changed his name to Boney James, and that was my first attempt at writing for smooth jazz. So I put one on his second, third album, and we were just making tracks, and Paul would produce them and make them hits. So I think that when you're a musician, yeah, and you love it, so you're always kind of producing, even if you're just, let's call it armchair producing. When you're like part of the session, you're doing
Hmm.
a live day. I'm doing it with Ricky Lawson for Dave Koz, or for Jesse J or Rick Braun, whoever. And you start watching them, you watching what they're doing, and they're soloing things, and you just kind of hear the spread of how it lays in the stereo mix. And so I think for first I was kind of attaining a little bit of knowledge with my ears, and slowly I became more comfortable looking at a Pro Tool screen and figuring out, okay, yeah, well, I can do this also, and it's fun.
Yeah, and you weren't were you formally trained in like engineering and stuff, or did you just kind of pick it up through doing it,
Yeah, no,
hanging
I
with?
never.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
just picked it up just watching, watching over Paul's shoulder, over Jeff Crother's shoulder for, for years, and just yeah, oh yeah, the bass. Well, let's turn the bass up 1 or 2 dB, and they kind of go over
Mm.
and they fudge it, and they do this, or they're copying this, or they're moving stuff around, or they're getting in another loading in another sound, whatever. But I like it, and I could see, um when the phones if the phone ever slowly stops ringing, I'd be happy, just maybe just writing 5 or 10 grooves a year for myself and for other people. That's really fun. That I still get a kick out of that, and I still love to play live. And I'm grateful that you call me, and David Benoit and some others, that I get to play live, and I don't have to deal with so much of that responsibility as a performing artist like you do. I take my hat off to you, bro, because
Oh man.
I know how involved it is. And oh my gosh, I'd rather be writing another song for somebody. So I'm just happy to put my stuff out, and yeah, and then just be everybody's sideman, whether they call me to do a session or they call me to do a live show.
You're so much more than that. I
Yeah.
remember when I first saw you, I had driven up to Jazz Alley to meet Bobby Caldwell, and Michelle
Hmm.
Abrams had introduced me and said he was looking for somebody to join the band, and I went up and I remember seeing the band. At that time, you had like a big band. It was like a mini big band. Remember that with
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
but I remember specifically you on the left side, or no, the right side,
Yeah.
and Carlisle on the right. And you're from the stage perspective, you look like you're 7 feet tall, and you're
Yeah.
both both got these shiny heads, and you look like you're in the military. I just my first thought was you very intimidating, but then you meet you and Carlisle, and you realize you're just a bunch of nice people. But hey, take me back
Right.
to Brooklyn, fourth grade. I want to give a shout out to music teachers, because I know there's one
Oh
for
God.
me. There's a music teacher who noticed something
Yeah.
in a 9-year-old: perfect pitch and a feel for the acoustic bass. Do you remember that teacher's name? And do you remember the actual moment
Of
you found out
course.
you could hear
Of
something
course.
other people couldn't?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Walter Rosen was my fourth grade music teacher. Nice Irish guy. They were all Irish. Mr. Rosen, Mr. Leviton. Um, yeah, it was a great upbringing in New York, and he had a way with kids. Well, we were chosen. There were like there were five third grade classes, and everybody in the grade did like an ear aptitude test.
Hmm.
And uh, even though I was playing a little guitar and I studied piano a little bit, I could read piano, beginner piano. Okay, Born Free.
Hmm.
Ba da 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 da. I could do all that, and I listened to the Beatles, and I listened to Chicago, and I had a guitar, and the whole third grade was tested, and I guess they called my parent. You know, we don't know how your son did it, but he just aced the test.
Hmm.
The rhythm aptitude, and the melody retention. Like we'd sing him something, and he just sang it back perfectly every time we in the orchestra. So from 100 and something kids, they put 40 in a class, and every day we'd go to orchestra. Every day we'd do like an hour in the music room, and first day, and he's assigning instruments, and Mr. Rosen says, does anybody know what they want to play? And I'm like, yeah, I want to play that big thing over there, that giant violin. And he said, really? So come on up here and go ahead and show us what show us what you got. So I grabbed the bass. I'm going to go ahead and do it here because I can. Okay. So
Great.
why am I not? Why do I not hear anything? Oh, because it's off. Okay, now. So he just wanted me to play the open strings. Okay, this is my first day I ever had a bass fiddle. And I just took the open notes and he says, just play this over and over again. Don't stop. So I was like, doom, 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 doom. He says, can you keep doing that? Don't stop. And then he led the class into that French song, Frere Jacques. So he fought Frere Jacques, da 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 ba da 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 ba da 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 da. I keep going ding dong dong, ding dong dong, and I went in my head I was just doing it, and I just felt like I levitated off the floor, and I was totally immersed in this thing that I was doing and I was kind of noticing how their melody was younger than playing the music of the day. Whether it was Santana, Bachman Turner Overdrive, some Wings, some Chicago, you know,
It gets you out of
yeah,
your. It gets you in the
everybody.
habit of being outside of your comfort zone, right? Which is kind of
Oh yeah,
what I think
from day one.
great musicians.
Yeah,
You have to be ready to roll. It's just there's just
yeah.
music, and you have to be ready to play. you
You
know,
got to be ready to play.
just
And I mean,
whatever it
we
is.
were, yeah.
Let's go.
We we were 12, 13, but we knew, okay, well, we got to start here, so we got to set up by then. We had our little set and we just do our tunes, and yeah, it was amazing, what we
Yeah.
did for our, and then it was all downhill from there. No, I'm kidding.
No.
But we then I went to high school, and then I'm there with the likes of Marcus Miller. He's a year older than me, and he's not even playing bass guitar. He's not even playing upright. He's playing clarinet in the orchestra, killer clarinet, and then he was playing bass guitar in the jazz ensemble. And Omar Hakim, was there. Omar is legendary drummer who's played with everybody from Dire Straits, David Bowie, Weather Report. I mean, yeah, Pharrell, and hundreds of others. Those were my school. Those were my classmates. Uh,
Hey,
yeah, I mean,
what did playing with, grown men in those bands like in Brooklyn teach you that Juilliard couldn't?
well, yeah, I mean, Juilliard was all about sectional playing. I never really did much in the terms of soloistic thing. We were just doing mostly like etudes and things like that. But I was being groomed for a symphony to go to Juilliard as an undergrad and study there. And as much as I loved playing the orchestra, the pull to play more contemporary music was
What is
one
that? What is
out.
that?
And
What is that, by the way? What is it? I mean, what is it like in your soul that draws you to? I mean, it's such a different to play because I've played part of, I've been part of big bands and it's super fun to play parts and stuff, but then it's a whole other thing to be part of like a band like Bobby Caldwell or performance type band. So you were obviously driven to do more of that. That was where your journey was taking you. So and you went to the High School of Music and Art too, like the legendary Fame School, right?
right, that's the school, that's the place where I met Marcus and Omar, and Rob Francis Genie was there, and hearing all the people that graduated there, like Lenny
And then
Castro and
you
Najee
studied under
actually.
Homer Minch, right? Then
Yeah, Homer was the
right?
was the professor at Juilliard. So
Wow.
I studied with him privately, and then I would go to Juilliard in the preparatory, division. And I really like that. Maybe I'll just keep coming back as the evolving bassist. Maybe that's what Rufus Reed meant with when he wrote the book, The Evolving Bassist. But maybe next life I'll come back and I'll be a straight legit classical, person. But I honestly, and I'll say it to the whole world, I probably just didn't have the patience or the yeah. I probably, I wouldn't say I wasn't good enough, but I remember Mr. Rosen from fourth, fifth grade. He said, "Yeah, classical music is 95% perspiration and 5% inspiration." And I think that every other music that I played was the other way around. Not to knock classical music, because when I hear the Messiah, or I hear some music from Mozart or whoever, and I really feel it's like it's God speaking to us.
Mm.
Um, but I guess I was just too much of a bon vivant and just jumping around from group to group and style to style. I didn't have enough discipline to go down that road.
Well, you can't do
Um,
you can't do everything well. I mean, there's only one Stevie Wonder, and the rest of us have to collaborate, right? I think
yeah,
I mean, there's only a
yeah,
few
yeah.
people that can play Marcus Miller. But 1987, you get the call from Spyro Gyra at 27, and you're doing 150 concerts in 2 years, and you recorded Stories Without Words, one of their most
Hmm.
popular albums. People, I mean, this is
Yep.
what people don't know about you. What did that? What did the band's pace, like on the road, teach you about yourself? I mean, what did you learn from that collaboration?
Well, they gave me my start. Before that, it was all, I was living kind of off the grid. I was just working, getting cash dollars, and living in the Keys and playing music and going to the Alps and playing music, and was with a band for 3 years from Alabama. And the thing with Spyro, I like to tell the story. I got the in. I just didn't get handed the gig. I heard that my buddy Kim Stone was leaving. I met Kim in Florida, and he went on to get the job with Spyro. And then Jeremy Wall was actually the fellow who I met in Key West. He was an associate of Spyro, wrote songs, and I guess he was a professor. And he never went on the road with them, but he would always write one or two songs. And when I heard Kim was leaving, um, I called I called Jeremy, and Jeremy arranged me to go in the cattle call of playing uh, with, they were having auditions, and I think they auditioned like 15 cats.
Hmm.
And I didn't get the gig. I got a call from Jay. I flew up from Key West to and went straight into the city, straight into a rehearsal room, and I played the songs, and I vibed with them, and it was really fun. And Jay called me a few days later, said, Roberto, you were my favorite. You were a lot of the band's favorite, but we kind of knew we were going to give the chair to our drummer's favorite. And I said, hey, Jay, you got to give the drummer what they want to do, and you'll be a
Hmm.
happy man. So
Yeah.
anyway, it didn't work out with that bassist. I'm not going to name names, but he is was one of the most, phenomenal bassists. And I heard Jay. I was already in France. I was skiing and playing music in the Alps, and I get a call from Jay and asking me how when can you come home. I fired the bass player. I said, well, why would you fire blah blah blah? Why would you? And he said, he was great, but he kind of just stood there, and he was like the basketball player who never passed. And that was, if tying into your question
Yeah.
about like what did you learn,
Uh huh.
what did you learn, that that there
Be
is,
it be it team
they don't
team
teach
player.
you, they don't
Yeah.
they don't teach you. I mean, they try to, but that's only, yeah, that's something you learn by doing. And so
Wow. Well,
yeah,
hey.
next thing I know, I'm on a plane, going back to New York and going into rehearsal with them. And we actually got a chance to record. I mean, we rehearsed and we performed some of these songs, most of Stories Without Words, we actually performed before we went in the studio. We did like 5 or 10 shows, and then we went in and played. Uh, and we cut it live. And I remember they had like a one of the first 32 track Mitsubishi recorders, and
Hmm.
that still wasn't enough. They had to slave another 24. Just a little geek note. Then later it's like, well, why did we put the rhythm section on the digital stuff? We should have put them on the analog. But that's a whole nother story and for a whole nother time. I digress. I apologize.
No, one of
But
my favorite,
I learned a lot. I learned
mhm.
a lot, bro.
One of my favorite stories about you, that I'm familiar
Uh-oh.
with is in 1990 you're on the road with Michael Franks on the Blue Pacific tour, and you take what you've called a leap of faith. You invited Bobby Caldwell to come see one of the California
Yep.
shows, and he
Yep.
shows up. He asks you to join his band basically on the spot. That invitation turned into 29 years. Walk me into that night.
Yeah.
What made you? How did that all happen?
Okay. I've told the story a few times. Well, didn't really hear much from Bobby at the time. I think it probably was. I remember where I was when I heard Fresh Bobby Caldwell from CD 101.9. I heard the song "The Real Thing,"
Oh yeah.
and I mean, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. I was at my cousin's house. It was Thanksgiving in Riverdale in the Bronx, and I hear this song, and I'm like, "Shut the front door! Wait a second, that's Bobby Caldwell." I know that voice, and I'm listening to Bobby just singing the snot out of Real Thing, and I'm like, Bobby's back. Wow, I didn't hear anything of his. I heard Heart of Mine, and I knew that he wrote. I heard What Kind of Man Can I Be? He wrote for Chicago. He wrote Heart of Mine for Boz Scaggs. And meanwhile, he probably wrote like 25 of these things he gave to Peter Saturni Grant or Janet Jackson or the Commodores. I mean, he had a great run as just a songwriter. So I ran out and bought that album, Heart of Mine, and there was Syndrome Records' telephone number. So me being the strong-willed Brooklyn boy, I
You're like,
called
why
the
not?
number. I faxed Henry Marks, and I didn't hear anything back. And then the last day of the last show in LA, I called, and as God would have it, I can't really understand how it happened, but I happened to get Henry on the phone, and we're talking about Brooklyn, we're talking about music, we're talking about Bobby, and whatever we talked about in that conversation, uh, we show up at the Strand, and Sonny Abelardo, my good friend, he was tour managing Michael Franks, and he said, "Hey man, don't look now, but I see Bobby." I know that Bobby was. You said Bobby might come to the show. I see Bobby in the front of the club. I said, shut the front door, man. Don't tell me that. Don't rub it in." And sure enough, I get out of the car, and Bobby's there in his trench coat, and with his mullet, and so we shook hands and we talked a little bit, and then after the show, he just looked at me. He never looked at me like that way again. No, I don't. He just had this wow, like Bobby Caldwell is starstruck to speak to me after the show. He said, "Dude, you guys killed it. I talked with Sonny, and I understand that you're done at the end of this month, and I start rehearsals, and Jimmy Haslip can't do it. Would you like to be my bass player?" And I said, "Well, my daughter's supposed to be born in Key West right around that time." And he said, "Well, I'm glad to know you're not shooting blanks, Roberto, but would you like to do the tour or not?"
Yeah.
I swear, you can't make this up, man. Uh, so I said, yeah, yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. And so Delphine was born the end of January. At the middle of February, I was in LA rehearsing with Boney and Alan Hines and Deborah Dobkin, who was playing percussion with Bonnie Raitt, um, and George Pirelli, who used to play with Michael McDonald, and Boney's honing his craft, and Paul Brown mixed front of house, and
Nice.
that's where Paul met and became friends with Boney James, and they discussed Boney's first album on that tour of Japan. So
Hmm.
I got in really early with Paul then, even though he had other incredible bassists that he would use for his productions. As he developed himself as a producer, I slowly got more and more in the door, being called for him. But back to that night with Bobby after the show, the next day I am sitting in Bobby's house in Studio City, smoking some of the most potent marijuana I had ever had in my life. And I'm sitting on this couch listening to like brand new Bobby Caldwell, never released, brand new Solid Ground album. And I'm just going, this is like, I'm tilting. Whoa, it's too much for me. Is this really happening kind of thing? And yeah, and we shook hands, and I met him a few months later. We got into rehearsal, and that's what started my time in LA.
Cool. And then 1993, fast forward, you join Randy Crawford as a bass
Hmm.
player, and she
Yeah,
takes one look at how you carry a band and makes you the musical director. A chair you had for 15 years, which is
I
that's a long
did.
time. But it
Yeah,
says a
I
lot
worked
about you
with.
because I know, from all the different bands I've worked with, the MD, it takes a specific type of knowledge and personality and diplomacy.
Yeah.
Just takes the
Well,
right person.
Boney. Yeah, yeah. Brandy's band was basically Bobby's band,
Oh, okay.
and uh,
So you knew
and
everybody.
then yeah, I knew everybody. I mean, they heard her. Boney invited her manager Barry Gross to hear a Bobby show,
Mm,
and we didn't know that Barry was kind of looking for an LA group because he used a band in Norway called Lava. They were like a self-contained
hmm,
kind of a fusiony kind of a band, and they were ran because Randy worked so much in Europe. They were her rhythm section that she used, and then we came along, and yeah, working with her was amazing. So I didn't start out being the MD, kind of Boney did, but then Boney's career took off, and he was replaced by, well, Tony Morris did it for a while, but then we settled on Gary Bias, who now plays and who's played with Earth, Wind, and Fire for 20 plus years.
mm.
Yeah, but we did some amazing concerts around the world, in South Africa, New Zealand, the Persian Gulf, all over Europe, Australia, just insane venues, traveling on the tour bus in jets, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, for those who don't know, what is it? What is an MD? I mean, you and I know, but tell people what an MD actually does. MD stands for
Well, yeah,
music
musical
director.
director. Well,
Yeah.
I would kind of move sound check along. I'd make sure that her mic worked, and I would direct the music when we would have rehearsals to learn stuff from a new album, whatever. We'd have rehearsal. So you'd have just one person, with the charts. So not everybody has writing their charts. You are just making sure everybody's on the same page, and yeah, I mean, you're kind of like the part-time coach a little bit, I guess.
Hmm.
But just
Yeah.
let everybody play, unless if it's not broken, don't fix it. So
Yeah.
yeah, you just kind of make sure it all goes together.
Now
Yeah.
you've played on records from everybody from George Benson, Hilary Duff, Joan Sebastian, Ricardo, are Jonah jazz, pop, Latin superstars most guys never touch. So,
Yeah.
what's a session story that I might not have found in my research of you that you think is interesting for your fans, your listeners?
For my fans,
Yeah.
like a session with one of those people, you
Yeah,
mean?
just like a
Or
session that's wackadoodle that that you're just like, wow, this is the last thing I thought I'd be doing.
well, okay. Well, this guy Johann Sebastian, not too many people from Brooklyn know Italian know who Johann Sebastian is, but you ask somebody who's from Mexico or Central America, Johann Sebastian's like Elvis,
Yeah.
but a songwriting fool Elvis, not just a pretty boy. Not that I'm saying Elvis was just a pretty boy.
Hmm.
He had his own genius, and he was ahead of his time for sure. Joanne, I got to do after being in LA for several years. I made friends with some Latin producers doing more like Latin pop, like Selena type
Hmm.
stuff. Yeah, J Lo and that sort of groove, that Latin R&B kind of thing, love song ballads things. So after working for some of those artists and those producers, more importantly, a friend of mine called me in to do a session for Joanne Sebastian. I'm like, Joanne who? So
Hmm.
how old is Joanne? What's her name? How old is she? No, it's not a she. It's not Joanne. It's Joanne. It's a guy. It's a dude. So I didn't know the megastar that he was. So I do a session with him, with Martin Flores and the wonderful guitar player. I'm trying to remember now. He's since passed. Ramon Stagnaro, in one of David Foster's top call. He was playing guitar, and we record 5 songs, and one of them was called Secreto d'Amor. That blew up. It went like double platinum. And when I would do concerts with him, we wouldn't get out of there alive unless we would end the show. Usually we do an encore, or the last song would be Secreto d'Amor, and it became like an anthem, one of his last anthems before he passed. So anyway, back to Joanne. So I did that session, and I did some shows, and we did a few more sessions, I think, in LA. And then he called me one day and he wanted me to fly to Mexico and record for him.
Wow.
So I'm like,
Okay.
okay, I'm gonna go to Mexico. So he flies me to Mexico City. He has like his brother or somebody pick me up in a van, and we're driving about an hour and a half from Mexico City to a place called Cuernavaca, and it's pretty upscale for Mexico. Um, there, it's still Mexico, but whatever. Not Mexico City. It's kind of like a pueblo, city. Anyway, we didn't get started probably until about 2 in the afternoon. After like a little lunch, we went in the studio. It was just me, Joanne, and the engineer. Now, Joanne, we used to play like concerts for 40, 50,000 people in the bullfighting arenas. We played the, Tacoma Dome, and we played Staples Center back when it was Staples Center. I mean, he did big, big shows. And here I am recording with this guy, just him and me, no ego, no fans, just this guy with his little cowboy hat and his big mustache. And I'm doing Patrick's song after song after song. I think by about 10 o'clock, I did like 13 songs in
Wow.
one day, just bass overdubs. And he would just keep saying, man, I like it. I love it. Can you do another one? And yeah, sure. And they were all in various forms of completion. Some of it was just like guitar and conga,
Hmm.
and he just had me just like play on a bunch of stuff. Anyway, that was probably my biggest payday for one day. Um, that was a pretty nice thing, and of course, all expenses paid. And I stayed another day extra, but he was so happy. And unlike the concert or any other thing where like he's this big megastar, it was just him, me, the engineer, and the music. That was it. And we did a few dates like that, but that was probably the most prolific in terms of doing 13 songs in a matter of 6 hours with a dinner break and yeah, and
Man.
maybe a small glass of tequila. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was nice.
Hey, well, tell me a little bit about, I guess,
Do we have
family.
anybody listening? Does anybody really care about me
Oh
or
yeah, lots of people do. Yeah,
that's
you
good.
know, you're. Let's see. Vincent J says, "Great interview, Patrick. Wonderful guest. So pleased to get to hear from talented Roberto Vally, Sophia Hichichi,
Oh,
Stacy Robin, Sophie Hetchich, Tadiochi,
nice.
Iwaki. Yeah. Um, hey,
Cool.
talk about your family is scattered across the world. It's West Africa, Norway, France, Los Angeles. Home for you has never been like one zip code. After 47 years of going out and coming back, what have you figured out
Yeah.
how a traveling musician keeps a family whole?
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. That's a tough one. How do we do it? Just learning how to juggle real good. I would say number one, and keeping your priorities. I just tried to do it when I was home. I was home. I was like that guy to go to the kids' school trip, and any chance I could walk them to school, I would when they were in elementary school, and then on through junior high, whatever, it didn't matter. I just try to be as hands-on as possible. In terms of my daughter in Africa, well, the separation, it's a long story short how she got there, but basically I married her mom. I met in France, and she was a French girl from a French colony, Ivory Coast, and when I moved to LA and I was on the road all the time, uh, we felt it best that she go back to her country, and she wound up wanting to stay. And so rather than getting into a big confrontation like that, I was welcome there any time, and they always said, "Hey, you might not be our daughter's husband, but you're our granddaughter's father, so you're always welcome here. If you have a girlfriend, whatever, you're here." And so lots of love. Um, we'll do that, and just having the kids' best interest at heart, and having to say no sometimes, to the work. Uh, yeah. So, and
That
you
stood
have
out
to
what you
answer.
said. Your story with Bobby Caldwell first meeting him. Your first response of whether you could go on tour. You didn't just say yes. You said, "Well, my daughter is going to be born around that time." That really struck me because a lot of people don't have their priorities in straight, and that just really struck me. Your first response was your daughter. It wasn't this amazing opportunity. It was family. So kudos to you, man. I think that's cool. That's hard to find in the music business these days. That kind of
You're talking about when you say the music business, you're talking about the industry, right?
yeah.
Just kidding.
But
Yeah, I know. No, I know. I know.
but anyway, that's I just thought that was a beautiful thing. Just know it didn't escape me that your first thought was, well, my daughter is going to be born.
Yeah.
And that
Bobby, rest his soul. He didn't. Yeah. He didn't. He didn't seem that impressed. He was impressed that I was fertile. I guess that because he said, "Yeah, well, that's good to know that you're not shooting blanks, Roberto. But do you want to come to Japan or?"
yeah,
Uh,
or
so,
not.
but that
And
was
then
Bobby. That was so Bobby. That answer. We had some really crazy times, great times, great musical times together with Bobby. And I know you have a long list of people who you've worked with over the years, and it's so great to be able to bring those uh, experiences to the next project. You know,
Yeah, because
so
hopefully,
you know
hopefully you're learning
that's another
something.
thing.
At least I'm trying. I'm trying to always be learning something new, and to like, I'm always conscious that it's an inside job. It's, in other words, usually it's something that I need to learn how to do better, or what your world becomes, what's inside of you. But hey, 57 years after a fourth grade teacher heard something in you, what are you trying to do now with your life? What would you say? What is your mission now in life?
My mission now. Well, I'm just thinking about what to make for dinner. No,
Yeah.
my mission in life. Well, I want to stay as healthy and as vibrant and as together as I can be, because I just really want to watch them grandbabies
Hmm.
get big, as much as I can, and not be a burden to anybody. So that's probably my biggest mission. I love to continue to play. I love to continue to write, and I think that that's very cool, because I can do it anywhere I decide I want to go. I can still, keep doing this, and people still want to send me songs to play on. I just I just talked with somebody that I've only met through a producer, and we got to speak, and he commented about how my bass playing on his songs, they transform his song, and that's what he had to tell me. And um, yeah, it was, I was flattered, because he says, like, you don't really even put a bass. It's not like your bass part. It's like you frame the song. So I'm happy to do that. I want to continue to do that for people, whether I go on the road or not. I've been recently working with Peter Bonetta, who's the father of Julian Bonetta, who's one of uh, music, pop music. He's worked with Regina Carpenter and Teddy Swims, and hundreds of people like that. His son, they have a huge production and writing camp, and I've been doing some cool things with some of the young bloods, like the Justin Biebers of tomorrow, and I really I enjoy that as much as I love playing with Benoit, or playing with Caldwell songs, playing a good produced pop tune, and they just like love what this old guru bass player adds to their songs. So yeah, I want to do more of that too.
I think the question, it sounds oversimplified, but the beauty is in the work. The beauty is in the moment. It's not the past or the future. It's the music that's in front of you, how you connect. I'm fond of saying we're in the business of connection. So musicians that forget about that typically don't do all that great. So last one. This is a little bit outside the box. Somewhere out there's like some 11-year-old kid with a bass, playing some block party exactly where you were. Do you think the
Mhm.
question is? Do you think we're called to do what we do and have no choice to do it, or is it a choice? Do you think? I mean, some people ask me, they'll say, Patrick, should I try to make a professional career out of this? And I got to tell you, my first thought is if you have to ask, probably the answer is no, right? So,
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? It sounds really harsh, but if you're not all in, then it's probably not your calling. But what do you think? What's your take on that? Take us out here,
yeah,
Roberto.
yeah. Uh, I've always followed this path, and whether it was an easy fork in the road or a difficult one, but I always stayed true to the love of wanting to play, and I took risks. I took a lot of risk, and I would tell the 11-year-old, you know, several different things. I would just say, play, learn as many different styles as you can, and it'll just make you a better musician. Not a better bass player, but that'll come naturally. But it'll make you a better musician. And I would, yeah, I would just say, follow your dream, follow your heart. Um, Honestly, when I came up, and now with the advent of home studios, and do we even want to the dreaded word AI? I wouldn't even know where to begin. I saw opportunities and I took them. Yeah, with from playing in bands, instead of just spending my time unwisely. We'd have rehearsal, and I did things. Yeah, I left one band I was comfortable with to join this band in Key West, and then I left them to join this band in Alabama. Then I left Alabama to go over to Europe, and just things kind of came. And I never once thought I wanted to be um, a star or really an artist. I just really genuinely loved to play, and I think that's still when I do these podcasts at Norm's Rare Guitars, and I'm meeting people, and 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes later, after learning their song, we're learning. Um, I'm learning their song, and then it's time to record. So what
Hmm.
people hear, um, are are the first time I ever played their song, and and that's what I think the versatility comes in. Whether it has a reggae overtone, or whether it has a Brazilian overtone, or whether it has more of a Latin, Afro-Cuban overtone, or if it's more folk driven, just simple, just you know whole notes, and that thing, it all makes you a better seasoned player. So
Beautiful. What's just real quickly? What are the um, like singles that are you're coming out on, and then where can people
right,
stay in contact
sure.
with you?
Well, Hang Loose and all my stuff is on Spotify. I believe Pandora. If you just punch in Roberto Valley, you can see it. Um, yeah, I've put out 9 or 10 singles from Roberto Valley, um, and they're all on Spotify. And then I probably put out another dozen for other people from like Najee, Greg Manning. I mean, excuse me, Najee, Greg Chambers, and Marion Meadows, and who else? Yeah, Brian Simpson, and yeah, it's going to be. I'm continuing to cultivate my catalog. And speaking of which, I don't know if you're a member of ASCAP, but to all the ASCAP people who want to try to get a little taste, there's something called ASCAP Awards, and the deadline to make the application is June 22nd. So I got to
Hmm.
get on the horn and um, and show them why they should give me a little award, yeah, compensation, because a lot of the kind of music that we do will fall through the cracks. It's cool,
Hmm.
and it's right there when you log into your ASCAP website. BMI does not offer that. I think BMI has a more concise way of tracking spins, but ASCAP, they have another way of doing it, and they offer this
Yeah, I hear
award thing.
different
So
people talk about. Some people are pro ASCAP, pro BMI. I don't know the. I'm with BMI, so you know,
yes,
but
yeah, I
I
used
don't
to be
know
with
which one's
BMI,
better.
honestly. Yeah, I used to be with BMI, and then I left BMI to go to ASCAP because I noticed my ASCAP co-writers were getting significantly more. And right when I quit, they changed their pay scale for smooth jazz. And I retrospect, I probably, at the end of the day, whoever you're with, you should just stay with, because I hear it's really hard to change your whole
Oh, I have
catalog
so many
over.
songs. I thought about it, changing everything over, and it was just too much. It would have been impossible. But hey, so for you guys out there listening, make sure it helps the algorithm to like, share, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, this is on YouTube and on my Facebook, and this is sponsored by Gig Right. It's a program it's called Gig Right, GIGWRIGHT. It's a new app that's made for band leaders and people who are running events. And so it's very, very cool. Go check it out if you have a minute. Roberto, thanks for taking time out of your busy day and schedule to share a little bit with us and answering all my questions. And hey, you're my brother and a dear friend, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Anything else you want to say on the way out?
I just want to thank you for wanting me to be on your show, having me on your show, and doing your homework, checking up on me and people I've played with, and my musical journey. And I want to thank the listeners who hung in there and thought whatever I had to say was worth listening to. So my appreciation goes out to everybody, and
Yeah,
to the
Lawrence
Almighty
Satter
too.
says,
Yeah.
great interview. He's very insightful. Sophie Hachichi, your question was Duesenberg, Destiny versus Fate. Anyway, lots of good comments. Hey, I will see you on the road, my friend. God bless, and until next time.
All right.
Sure is fun. I know that.
This is where the party at.
Patches is patches. 2-week-old collard greens. Kind of extra meat in it.
Do it, honey.
He always wearing them Japanese burgers.